All right, welcome to Visionaries, our first show. Today we're going to talk about sporting events, and we have my special guest, Ben Dolicki, who is the Chief Broadcast Navy Engineer for the Mercedes-Benz Stadium here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I've got to know Ben through both SMPTE events as well as a professional engagement. So Ben, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Good to be here.
So I think that where I'd like to start is, I've been doing technology, I've been doing the TV industry for a long time. Sporting events are very, very different. And I've had exposure to them a lot in the last, couple months, a little bit closer than in the past. What is you're involved with all the time? You did the Super Bowl back in 2019. Obviously, we have the Atlanta Falcons and the United. How do you compare the sporting events to like general television? What's your view of
Sure.
the world on that?
Yeah. Well, the big thing is when you're a host a facility and you host one of these big major events, let's say it's a Final Four, it's a Super Bowl, something of that nature, all the vendors show up. So especially when you have an event like the Super Bowl, one of the great things for me was that was so early on the development here of MBS, right? It was just the second year in, and we're already hosting a big major event like the Super Bowl. So it's a great time for you to audit every single piece of equipment in your control room. So from an engineering side, if a Ross Video, if Evertz Microsystems, if somebody like that is showing up to your facility because the Super Bowl wants to do X, well, these companies have been talking about their equipment all year long at NAB, see all the great things they get to do. So the Super Bowl is where they really get to unleash that stuff. So it's a great time when you're a host city, a venue, to be able to have all the vendors in, really push to the limits of what you're doing. So again, maybe a Falcon game might have 11 cameras that we utilize for that. Super Bowl is going to be 15 to 19 cameras. If we only are using, let's say, 2 to 3 CG devices, there might be 4 to 5 being used for a Super Bowl. If we've got 4 replays, there might be 7 to 8 for a Super Bowl. So everything just gets exponentially a lot bigger.
So one of the things that I found interesting when I came down to visit you guys at the stadium and really sort of learned that there are actually 2 shows produced at a sporting event. There's an in stadium, and you guys have an amazing control room down there. And then there's the one that's produced for television. Maybe explain to the people who aren't as familiar with that concept that there are really 2 shows produced.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great point. And so there's outside of where we're located here at Mercedes-Benz Stadium is kind of right down on the service level. And right outside of our control room is the truck bay. That's where all of the production trucks come in for a big major event, whether it's a Falcon or United match or it's the Super Bowl. So you've got all your TV trucks that show up at the compound, and that's where the broadcast and the production's taking place for your over the air. So for network, for NFL, it's going to be Fox or CBS or NBC or somebody like that. They're going to come in and they take on all the production and they connect into your facility. So the JBT boxes that are spread out through the facility, the camera guys are going to patch into those. Those are going to come right back down to the truck IO, and that's where the TV trucks are going to hook in to get the feeds to do their production remotely in their trucks. Versus the in-house feed like we do here at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, all of that production is being taking place here at the stadium in our control room. So that's all centralized, and that would be just like a TV production truck, but condensed in one space here. So we've got our technical producer, our technical director, our producer, director, all of them are housed right here in our control room, and everything that takes place here is being seen on our Halo video board.
Are you guys are you using your own cameras within stadium, or does the truck company bring in and then share those with you, or vice versa? Do you share with the truck company? How does that
Mhm.
relationship work in a stadium?
Yeah, so we definitely share resources with the television companies that come through here, the production trucks. So if they've got, let's say, a pylon cam, or if they've got sky cam or some sort of angle that we would really like to get, they can patch right into the IO panel, and we'll get those feeds here into our system, and vice versa. So if there's a POV camera that we might have on a visiting team locker room or the Falcons locker room, something that the TV trucks might want, we can also share that with them.
Yeah. So in preparation, so let's take a typical, and I don't know if there is such thing as a typical football game. So let's say you're doing NFL Monday night, you're doing a Saturday game. When do the trucks first roll in? And is it
Mhm.
typically, is it the truck companies, are they by the hosting television network? Is it by the team? How does that relationship work? And then sort of when do they
Mhm.
start the whole process to bring this show to air?
So it just depends on the size of the show. So if it is a Monday night football or Sunday night football, they're typically here on a Tuesday, or I'm sorry, on a Wednesday or Thursday. They are here getting ready, and again, they're traveling those trucks across the country. Could be coming from Los Angeles, or they could be coming from Nashville. But those trucks show up typically about Wednesday to Thursday, and that's where the production team. That's where they start. Now, if it's a typical Sunday Fox 1 o'clock NFL game, those trucks usually show up Thursday or Friday, and they'll come in, and those trucks are NEP typically, and that's a contract that then the broadcasters set up with those TV truck companies, those mobile production units. They set up deals with them. They purchase or rent their trucks, and then those trucks are on the road, set to those particular shows. So again, if it's the Fox A show, that truck is going to stay with that show and travel around the country from city to city for the whatever the Fox A show is.
All right, fantastic. So let's contrast that with, let's say, a Super Bowl. When do you start preparing for a Super Bowl?
Yeah.
The planning, and then when do the trucks show up there? And is there such thing as
Yeah.
dress rehearsal for that?
Yeah. So luckily here at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, we had the college football championship the year before the Super Bowl, which was kind of a dress rehearsal for us for hosting a major event like that. Then the following year, when we had been planning for the in-house show. This is just for the in-house portion of it. We'd been planning for just under a year. So again, we had started during that CFP and using that as a template. Worked with Van Wagner, who produces the Super Bowl, and we work with them to build out what the show is going to look like. And so for us here at our brand new facility, that was an Aspen 2022 IP facility. That was the first IP production done for a Super Bowl. And so there was a lot of nuances there that we needed to learn and work through, and a lot of different things that they wanted to do as well, the Van Wagner group. And then you talk about our display. Well, it was the largest display at that time that had been used for a Super Bowl. So a lot of real estate, a lot of different things that they wanted to try out in regards to stats and layouts. And so that process had taken about 6 to 8 months of planning, coordinating with the in-house staff here at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, as well as the Van Wagner group, and then coordinating with all the different vendors to make sure that we were supported to have all the right people here.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
then to your other,
go
yeah,
ahead. Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say, just to your other point on the TV trucks, they usually show up a little less than a month before the game. So once
Wow.
the NFC championship games have been decided, once all of those, so that's about 3 weeks to a little over 2 weeks before the game. Once those have been decided, then they start moving all of the trucks into place. And the in-house production is usually about a month. So ATK comes in to handle all of your in-house audio. So that could take, again, about a month out before the actual game to where they're redoing your whole system.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I think, you bring up audio, and that's one of the, I mean, or I'm a television person, a film person, we need to have audio, but I don't think a lot of people realize how much audio production actually goes into. They think on television, okay, I hear the referee and that's about it. But can you talk a little bit about, well, how big an audio production there is actually within
Yeah,
an NFL game or a sporting
it's
event?
yes. I mean, it is absolutely massive. So they had a L acoustic system that they had brought in for here on our Super Bowl. We've got Danley Sound Lab speakers, and they actually brought in a line array system for the Super Bowl. I just had worked the Super Bowl in Arizona this year, and ATK came in, same thing, and added to the L acoustic systems that the Cardinals had, added into that. And so you've got major shows. So the halftime show over the Super Bowl is probably the biggest event outside of the game that's taking place. So the audio for that has to be in tip top shape. So there's a whole army of people that are coming in just servicing the halftime show itself. And then you've got another group that's coming in and working on just the game. For us, let's say a typical Falcon game, we've got, let's say 15 to 20 belt packs for comms that we've got, wireless belt packs that we're distributing. For this past Super Bowl, we had close to 300 belt packs.
Wow.
So just for the person that was managing on the audio side, the comms, that was, a over 2 week process for them, placing antennas, testing signal all over the building. So that was one thing that a lot of people don't even kind of consider when you think about it, is just the coordination that's needed for just the wireless comm systems for all the producers and on-field talent that are out there. So that's one side of it. Microphone coordination is another. So just working with, there's an army of game day frequency coordinators at the NFL supply. So that way everybody is coordinated, because if you think about it, you've got news agencies and people from all over the world that are showing up to the game. So the coordination on the RF frequency is also a really big deal. Everybody just coordinating that to ensure no one's stepping on each other. So there's a lot of little nuances that all have to come together. It really is like a whole, it takes a village here to do all of this. And it's all a bunch of different groups coordinating and working together.
Yeah, it's interesting. You had mentioned there's news agencies, so there's other people there. Are there other production organizations or international distribution or things like that make a Super Bowl a little bit different than, say, a traditional NFL game?
It's just the number of broadcasters. So, and again, the only thing that probably rivals a Super Bowl is going to be a World Cup or an Olympics. So, they take over your facility. So typically where you might have the 300 section where fans are sitting, now that gets carved out and that's excess media flow. So you're going to have maybe 200 to 300 extra members of the media that are broadcasting to countries all over the world. And they need a little tabletop with their radio setup and TV to monitor the game. And so again, the setup that's just needed for that is about a month-long process.
So you had mentioned, obviously, like you said, there's that halftime show, which is a show in and of itself. And if I remember correctly, at the last Super Bowl, you basically had two different production companies doing. I think it was NEP that may have done the halftime show, and I could be wrong. How do you guys handle the sort of the in-house? I mean, what are you guys producing in the stadium for the halftime? How are you integrated with what's going on there?
Yeah, that is great, because for us, that's where, for the in-house side of it, you just get to sit back and relax and enjoy the show, because we take a feed from that production company, from basically the TV truck, and we just take their feed and we put it on the displays. So this past Super Bowl, which was different from our Super Bowl here in Atlanta, the one in Arizona, that company, that separate production company, actually tied in and took control of all the displays. So again, the in-house people weren't worried about having to, are we on the same communication path, or are we hitting the button at the right time? Are we doing everything that they want? We had just given control over to that third party, and they were able to control the fascia boards, the main displays, put up there whatever they wanted to. So it's enjoyable from the in-house side, because you just do get to sit back and relax. And it's the one part of the game that you do get to enjoy and kind of sit back and watch it.
Oh, so in terms of, so you've done work. You were at San Francisco with the Giants and baseball. How does something like a baseball game differ, say, from a football game in terms of the production that goes into it?
Yeah, the first thing that is completely different from baseball than from any other sport is that baseball cannot show live action on their displays. So if when the game action is going on, you have to have a still graphic, which we call the game in progress, the GIF, that is up on your main display. So I think we averaged it out. It was about 70 to 75% of the game is on this look. So you're not even showing live action for that. It's really for replays. It's for all the inning break kind of things that are going on, activations, and then pregame and postgame. So that changes it from just a production standpoint, because one, you don't need as many in-house cameras as you might for a football game, because you're actually covering the game here. The replays in baseball are a little bit different, how it's triggered, who triggers a replay, who can call the replay, versus in the NFL. You're really aiding and abetting the team here by putting up different angles, trying to find the best replay angles quickly as possible, so that the team can throw a challenge flag, and you've got more interaction, let's say, with the coaches there, because we're trying to help them put the best angles up so that they can challenge and figure something out quickly. So there's that main difference. And then the other thing with baseball is, it's a much slower game. There's no clock. So we used to joke, there's no clock in baseball. Theoretically, it could go on forever. Versus football, there's definitely, there's quarter breaks, there's first down. So everything is just, it's much bigger. So when a first down happens, which could be every 3 or 4 plays, it's get loud, it's intense music. Whereas baseball, you're just kind of sitting around waiting for things to happen, like maybe a run is scored, a home run, and then we react to it with all the fan graphics and such. So I would say football is less games, where you only have 10 home games with preseason, and baseball is 82 plus.
Mhm. And with, let's say, so we have Atlanta United here in Atlanta, soccer or football, as they say in Europe. How does that impact how you produce things, knowing that typically there's no commercial breaks, there's no commercial timeouts?
Mm-hmm.
Football, there's commercials. How does that differ when you guys are producing either in-house or the production
Yeah.
companies?
Well, in-house, it's great because, again, once kind of that ship has sailed, it's gone. So there's, again, like you said, there's no quarter break, there's no timeout. So it's just it's 2 45-minute halves and a halftime. So it's when the game's going to end, when it starts, when it's going to end. It's great. And it's just game action and coverage. So kind of to your next question about, what are teams and what are venues and broadcasts doing to enhance that? I think some of the things that I've noticed are virtual ads. So what they're trying to do right now is on the end zones, let's say the end lines of the pitches, is put virtual ads up there, as well as doing virtual ad overlays on the field LED displays. So that way, let's say, as you know, here in Atlanta, CHOA, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, they're a provider, they're a sponsor here for us. So that makes sense to show that on our screens here in Atlanta. But let's say when we're playing in Los Angeles, they're not going to run a CHOA ad on their in-house LED displays. So they're working on technology now to have an overlay on top of that for the market here in Atlanta, to where you would see your in-house ads virtually overlaid on top of those LED ads. So in-house would see, whatever they're playing, and then in broadcast, you would see whatever we can overlay on top of that.
Yeah, the AI technology and VR technology is getting pretty amazing.
Yep.
So you guys obviously at the stadium, you also have entertainment events, concerts, and the such. How does that impact, or how do you guys operate those? How do those, say, compared to a sporting event?
Yeah. So it just depends on the event. So we have a lot of concerts that we host here at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And most of the time, the artists do not want themselves to see themselves on that display on the halo. They bring in their own setup, their own LED displays, and they've paid a good deal of money to lug those all around the country. So they like to use those and don't want kind of the attention being drawn away from that. So for the majority of concerts, it's more on the audio side. What are we doing to ensure that the audio is good here in the building? What are we doing to ensure that we can support them? So again, if it's a full house here, are we hitting the upper 300 levels with our speakers? Are we hitting back house areas? What are we doing to ensure that the quality of audio in the building is top notch? And then if they do ask for that IMAG display up on the halo, we can tie into them, and we're able to put that up on the board so they can do that. So there's not a lot of production that we have to do internally. It's more or less taking a feed. But then there are a lot of third-party events that might come in that want to utilize our broadcast infrastructure here at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So that might be using a couple of cameras, that might be using some of our CGs, our replay systems. We do a lot of different things. From Primerica hosts a big, massive event here that's 3 days long, 3 day long. We do the Passion Conference as well, which is probably one of the largest non-sports related events that we do here at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So, and all of those bring different unique challenges to them. So even though they might bring in their full broadcast infrastructure like Passion Conference, we're still tying them into the halo, giving them control of the displays, and here to support them in any way that they need. So, even though we may not be using all of our cameras and infrastructure, the demand and the need for us to be here as the engineers is always there.
Yeah. One of the things I've recently been doing a lot of work with business continuity and disaster recovery, and it just dawned on me, obviously if it's an NFL game, Monday Night Football, you don't want anything to go wrong, but you have redundancy and redundant power and things like that in the stadium. Is there a difference when, say, a Super Bowl comes? Because I remember, what was it, a year or two ago, maybe 3 years, that they lost power. I don't know if it was a World Series game or something, but they lost power during
New Orleans.
the game.
Yeah.
Yep. They were off. So what kind of sort of redundancy is put in place for, say, something like a Super Bowl? Is there a lot of activity and emphasis placed on that?
Yes, that's a great point, Phil. So you do have to have 3 redundant sources of power. So you can't just have one redundant source of power. You have to have up to 3 redundant sources of power just to ensure, as well as generators. So that, because I believe that was 2013 is when the power went out. So because of that event, now there's all sorts of redundancies put in there. in regards to transmission. Just, used to have just maybe a sat truck that would be used for transmission. Now a lot of broadcasters use the Switch or AT&T or Lumen, and then they're using a satellite truck as backup too. So, that has changed too. Again, the fiber connectivity throughout the country and the world has kind of changed transmission over the last few years to where satellite trucks aren't being used as much, as well as things like TVU. People are using their backpacks to transmit back into studios and things like that. So I'm seeing that as kind of a big change as well. So we had a ENG satellite truck lot that was the first year was always full. Now local news people aren't bringing the trucks anymore; they're just using backpacks and such. So that is one thing that has changed. And then, like you said, just on the redundancy side of it. So every little piece and component has to be fully redundant. So for us during the Super Bowl, what that meant is our Ross Tessera system, which is the graphic system that's playing the content to the Halo, which is a 20,000 plus pixel display. So you have to have 6 engines that are pumping that out. So we had put in a secondary redundant stack. And again, one of the cool things about hosting that event is you have all of the top brass from the vendors like Ross and Evertz that are coming out. So we were able to create and tie in with Ross dashboards our Tessera system through our router, so that it's now very seamless for an operator. If one of our blue boxes were to fail, that someone can just easily click a button and redundantly fail over to a backup box. So whereas before that would have caused patching and going in and changing nodes and things like that. So that's kind of a benefit to that, as your question, kind of that redundancy factor that we were able to utilize and still use here at Mercedes-Benz Stadium to this day.
Oh, wow. Well, Ben, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. I don't think people really realize just how massive and in a short period of time a sports production gets put together and put on air, and then of course you tear it all down and go to the next city and do it all over again. So I really appreciate it. If there, any parting words, any you want to pitch the stadium. I think that the Mercedes-Benz Stadium is an amazing stadium. I'm fortunate enough to go down there and spend some time down there, and I appreciate you allowing me. Anything that you'd like to add?
Well, we just recently were rated #1 in the Voice of the Fan for NFL for our LED displays, and #3 for our sound system. So we take great pride in that. #1 in technology and overall fan experience, we rated #1. So, the stadium here, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, puts a big emphasis on customer satisfaction. So we really do like to listen and respond to what the fans say. So with that, there'll be some major upgrades probably taking place here over the course of the next 3 to 4 years from our system now. And, it'll be really great to be a part of that and to usher in a new wave of technology here for the World Cup and other big major events happening in 2026 and beyond. So stay tuned here. If you come to the matches, if you come to the games and you like what you see here, just wait a couple more years and we'll enhance it even more.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we appreciate you being here, and I look forward to coming down and catching a United game shortly. Haven't been in a year or two, so looking forward to that. And again, thank you very much, and we appreciate it. And we thank everybody for watching Visionaries.
Thanks for having me, Phil. Take care.
All right. Take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Yep.